Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to part 2 of our Knowledge Hub Fireside Chats. Today, we're really digging into company wikis and exploring how they can become our single source of truth, and also how we can really figure out the best way to introduce these in our teams. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Maria Marquis. Here at Coda, I consider myself the Chief Cheerleading Officer. I love to celebrate our makers. I love to hang out with our customers and learn from them and learn with them. So that's really my big passion here at Coda. Lucky for all of you, I'm joined by one of my fabulous colleagues and two of our brilliant makers. And we're going to be nerding out on knowledge hubs today, seeing how they've been put together and the different ways that we can really accomplish organizing our universe of information. First of all, I want to introduce you to all of my lovely colleague right here, John. John, do you want to just introduce yourself to the group in case they don't know who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Maria. So I get the joy of working with all of our lovely makers, building wikis like I did with Angela and Van Ann, and OKR docs, whatnot that they come to me in their imagination. So I'm basically the chief maker enabler. I just made that up, Maria. I'm trying to get something as good
I like
as
it. The CMEO. That's good.
There we go. Yeah, CMO.
Right on. Cool. And then we're joined by two of our fabulous makers. Angela, do you want to introduce yourself to the group? Let them know who you are, your role, and where you work?
Yeah, happy to. I'm Angela, and I'm an executive assistant to the CEO at Mode. We're a data analytics platform based in San Francisco. So as EA to CEO, aside from scheduling and being gatekeeper, I work on various projects like putting together a wiki. So happy to share more today.
Right on. Awesome. And Van Ann, do you want to introduce yourself to the group? Let them know who you are, where you work, and what you do.
Sure. Hey, everyone. My name is Van Ann, and I work at Bright Insight, which is a global regulated digital health platform for medtech and biopharma customers. And I work on our BizOps team, which is responsible for leading cross-functional strategic initiatives to improve organizational alignment and performance. So yeah, one of those initiatives was this company wiki we created. So excited to share that.
Awesome. So just a little bit of logistics before we dive in, everybody, to make sure that everyone gets what they need from today's session. Over there on the right side of your screen, there's a chat area. You can type whatever's on your mind, thoughts, feelings, emotional outbursts. We'd love to hear from you. Please just let us know what's on your mind there. If you have a question, though, please do click on the Ask a Question button below our wonderful faces. That's a place where you can log it, make sure that we don't lose it, and also a place where you can upvote and downvote questions. So if you have the same question, you can go ahead and be like, oh, me too. But there's no such thing as an interruption in our virtual sessions. It's really about all of us spending some time together, having a chat. So whatever's on your mind, let us know. Again, no such thing as an interruption here today, and there'll be plenty of time for us to have a conversation. So with all of that logistical stuff out of the way, let's start off with the problems that both of you needed to solve, because every Coda doc exists to solve some kind of problem. And particularly with knowledge management and wikis, there's really no one right way to do it. It's really about how do you find that right way for your people. So Van Ann, let's start with you. What was the problem that you were hoping to solve in the wiki that you built?
Yeah, absolutely. The main problem we wanted to solve was how to centralize access to shared information and knowledge across our organization, whether it be, OKRs, to our policies and procedures, to, onboarding materials for new hires. And yeah, before it was pretty much scattered throughout our folder system, didn't really have a great user interface. And so we were looking for a platform where we could kind of bring that all together for people to see and contribute to.
Nice. Excellent. And Angela, how about you? What was the problem that you were hoping to solve with your wiki project?
Yeah, we had a lot of duplicated and outdated documents because across our company, different teams use different platforms for different purposes. And so we needed to bring everyone together onto one and to have one single source of truth in a very clear and organized way. And easy to implement, I think, was really important for us.
Totally. Yeah, because there's other things that we're doing with our day, right? We're not just here managing our knowledge, we're also running a business. So I love this idea of we need it to be fast and we need it to be able to move forward. So now that we have a better understanding of the problems that you were both hoping to solve, let's do just a quick tour of both of your docs. And good news for everybody here on the call, these are available in our gallery. John, if you would be so kind as to pop those links over to chat so folks can make a copy, snag it, make it your own. Venan, why don't we start with your doc, and I'll go ahead and share my screen since I've got that for you here. So let me know when you can see it. All right. That coming through?
Yep, I can see it.
Fabulous. And if folks in the audience just give me like a yes, I can see it, looks good, some kind of signal in chat, so I know that we're all in the same time and space here in our virtual world. Thanks, Camille. Nice. Awesome. Good to see you, Camille, by the way. Nice. Excellent. Thank you, Jade. Fabulous. So, Venan, kind of walk me through how is this doc put together to solve that problem? And go ahead and just direct me where you'd like me to click.
Yeah. So I think, I gave a sense of what the bigger problem was, but even before we started populating all of the pages here, we had this top section at top which we kind of populated with our thoughts on what the problem definition was, like our thoughts on what was a pain point that we wanted to address in the wiki, as well as feature ideas, stuff like that we thought that a wiki could solve for us. And so that's what this section was for. So we brought together a pilot set of users to actually go through that process. And that really informed how we created the pages that actually make up our wiki, which is under Bright Inside Home. If you're to expand that. So we took a pretty, kind of collaborative approach to figuring out how to put this together. And so if you expand the Bright Inside Home section, you'll see, we've pretty much populated this with all sorts of information like, company directory, which, DNA, mission, vision, company directory, which I am pretty proud of because it helps give a sense of what everyone is working on in their role, as well as, their working preferences, which is very important for us because we are global and now distributed remotely. So that was pretty key for us. And then I think the last thing I'll mention, so that's an example of just kind of what I have in my bio in the directory. And I think the other thing, probably one last thing I'll note here is our OKRs page, which we really wanted a central place to make these visible and create, at least a way for us to track and create transparency on how we're working toward our shared goals. So that's probably a couple of the highlights of our wiki.
Cool. I'm just very curious. I just want to check out this just for new hires area. Oh, cool. So it's got a whole checklist, all of the onboarding materials. Can you share a little bit about kind of the intention here? Because I know here at Coda, we've been trying to figure out, hey, now that we have people who onboard entirely remotely, what does that look like? So can you kind of talk through what we're looking at here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the pain points was, before the wiki, it was very unclear what resources were available to new hires. So, and also unclear like what they should be doing, their first week. So we tried to centralize that on this page, everything they need to know for like onboarding when it comes to getting to know the company, like our marketing materials, our product, our platform, stuff like that. And then a sub page in here is we also created a wiki for new hires to contribute advice as well as any suggestions to make this a better process for everyone. So
very cool.
Yeah, we've been using that to gather feedback to make this better.
I love that. I love that there's a lot of crowdsourcing happening in the wiki that you've built, as far as not only what should be included, but also then kind of continuing to have crowdsourcing be part of that process. Yeah, totally, Nate. I agree. Brilliant, 100%. Awesome. So I'm sure we'll be coming back here, but Angela, let's go ahead. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Angela, let's take a look at your wiki, which I know has kind of a different flavor. You know, here we have something that's kind of got everything involved. So Angela, let's walk through Central Station.
Yeah, let's do it. Can you see my screen?
I can. Beautiful. Great.
Awesome. Cool. So yeah, I'd mentioned earlier that we use a lot of tools. So we have a lot of existing platforms right now across the company. Sales and success uses Guru, product uses Coda, marketing primarily Google Drive, and everyone sort of uses Quip. So that created a lot of like duplicate and outdated information, and we like absolutely needed to like create something to bring everyone together. And so I see a wiki as kind of like a meeting place. I like to compare it to a grand central station, the starting point for everything, the starting point to accessing everything, but I don't expect people to like spend their entire day in here unless they're me. And so to jump into it, homepage. So we thought the most important things here would be mission, values, and goals. Basically, like not just what is a wiki, but like where do I go from here? So the mission, pretty straightforward. You know, why are we here? Values, like how we treat each other, and then lastly, goals. Like what are we focused on this year, and what are we focused on this quarter? And then after you know what your goals are, the question becomes like, well, how are we tracking towards our goals? And as I mentioned, Mode is a data analytics platform. So this is one place where we're very much focused on. And one actually big reason why we end up using Coda instead of anything else is because of embeds. And so here I have a screenshot of like Core Concepts, which is our suite of reports that tell us what like the most important business metrics are, like what is the health of the company. And here's an example of like an embedded mode dashboard. So just like having things embedded and like in your face, like you see it, is very easy. You don't have to like link out. I think is super important because if you have to link out anything, there's a chance that people may not see it.
Right. Every link out is an opportunity to lose somebody, right?
Definitely. Yeah. And next, I want to get into organizations, and this is where I involved like every department. Every department will have like a team page up here, and every department also has like a point person. And so that point person is like in charge of determining what goes into this content. And this is where we give a lot more like freedom. But I didn't just want to give like department leaders like a blank page, because then I would have no idea how they would, where they would go with that. And so I created this kind of like a skeleton frame of like, top 3 bullet points of what people need to know. And then this middle section right here is like really the meat of it. And this is where every department will be different depending on where they are. And lastly, every department page should have something about goals. What are they working towards?
Nice.
Next, I want to call out our all hands page. And the reason why I want to call this is because this is actually one of our most popular pages. I don't know for certain, but because I spend a lot of time in our wiki, I can often see like when someone's like looking at page and like what page they're looking at. And even though this is super simple, it's just a table. We keep like all the links from our all hands, like past presentations. And before Coda, like we would often just like have to search in Slack, like, oh, where's that link? Where's that deck that we saw 2 weeks ago? A lot of repetitive questions and stuff. And so because of this, I think people just know where to go, and that has made a really huge difference. Yeah. Lastly, I have a lot more pages here, but lastly, I want to go through the how we work section. This was like, we weren't sure whether like what to include, what not to include. We ended up deciding to include like Slack guidelines and meeting guidelines in ours, but to not include like HR policies or benefits, because from there it kind of becomes a slippery slope, and then you end up including like everything into a wiki. And we wanted to keep it simple enough, but also comprehensive enough. And that is pretty much it.
Nice. I love about the setup that you've put together is you've really made it about flexibility inside of structure, right? Like the structure is
Hmm.
pretty light. And then just
Yeah.
been like, okay, now here is where you can go and make it your own. I think you mentioned this idea of things that we don't include, and that you just chose, we don't want to include our employee handbook or more of that static information. Van Ann, how about you? Is there anything that you decided, oh, this shouldn't be in our wiki? Anything that, if we're thinking about kind of pruning it or purging what you might not want to bring in, did you make any decisions like that?
Yeah, I would say on the OKRs page, we actually created a separate OKR doc that we link to, which provides more of a detailed how-to set up goals and to track them and create space for teams to actually create and update them there. So we thought, at least in the wiki for now, we'll provide a high-level overview of it, and then the OKR doc will have more information. So that was like a choice that we made just to keep things streamlined.
Totally. And I think this hub and spoke idea is something that we see a lot with wikis, even ones that look very different as far as the content. But the idea that you've got this core place, and then you can, for anything else that's in the universe, you can pull it out. Also, Angela, before I forget, we are also mode customers. So we love embedding mode dashboards in our Coda docs as well. So we're totally with you on that one. One of the things that we've been talking a lot about in these wiki conversations is this concept of the single source of truth. It's a phrase that we throw out there a lot. And I would love to ask people, do you think that single source of truth is a myth? Or what does this phrase mean to you? So Angela, I'll toss it over to you first. Single source of truth, what's your hot take on it? What do you think about it?
I would say we really believe in it, but I think that it takes work. It's like, it is a myth until you make it real.
So I love that. Put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah,
nice.
I think that if you don't establish a single source of truth, or if you don't establish like this is official, then it is a myth at a company.
Yeah. How about you, Van Ann? How do you feel about single source of truth? Is it a myth? Is it real? What do you feel about it?
Yeah, I really like what you just had to say. It definitely resonates with me. I do think that, it's something we are, striving toward, and especially as we're growing really quickly, we have a lot of data that we use for BizOps. Me in particular, I use a lot of information from across the organization that we don't own, but other departments own. So, working towards that. I would say one example, very simple, is in our wiki, we have a time off page where we've actually, here's a source of truth of what we think about taking time off. Like, sometimes it's known as pretend time off, but actually here, we really want you to take time off. And so here's what you can do to prepare. Here's how you should set your notifications, stuff like that. And that is, shaping kind of how we actually operate and source of truth of how we view and practice, taking time off. We work really hard, but we also want to rest and take that time to rejuvenate before coming back to work.
Totally. And I love this call out that, depending on our professional background, words like time off or good communication might mean very different things, right? At a previous job, it might be, to your point, pretend time off. And how do we know unless we really document it? I love that the intentionality of that. Ooh, it looks like we have a question. Let's take a look. So the question is from Nate. Thank you, Nate. In bringing teams together around your wikis, what were some of the challenges or strategies in getting all of your teams to have buy-in and engage with it? Also, any resistance that you had and tactics that maybe help you turn around. This is the question of someone who's definitely had to do some change management, and I completely empathize with that. Van Ann, let's start with you. How did you kind of roll this out and deal with that change management aspect of a new tool for informational conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first what we did was, do that intentional problem definition and ideas, features, brainstorm in Coda. So that made it a lot easier for people to already engage with the tool. From there, as we were building it out, was very intentional about involving our leadership team in helping them understand the purpose of the wiki and like the benefit it would provide us, especially because we're growing so much. And, especially when it comes to onboarding new hires, we needed a central location for new hires to find information. at a very basic level. So previewing it with them, getting them the opportunity to look at it, also input department information, their own profile in the company directory. And then from there, having space to launch it with the company. We had opportunities to present at all hands, one high-level overview and then another live demo where, everyone was able to see how it works. And so I think that phased approach really helped us, get people to try it, yeah. I think, and then actually see, oh yeah, like we really enjoy using it and it's useful. So I think that helped us get over some of the maybe initial hesitations people might have had before.
Totally. And one thing I love about what you said that I hadn't thought of before is this idea of just defining the problem and having that be in the wiki itself. Like, here is the problem that we have, so that everyone can go like, oh yeah, we do have that problem. Because sometimes it's like we introduce a tool and we forget to outline, like, here's what we're trying to solve. So that's a wonderful call out that I'm going to take away, put in my pocket for myself. How about you, Angela? How did you sort of roll this out to the teams and deal with any potential resistance that might have come through?
Yeah, I think our story is a little bit different because, like I mentioned before, our product team was already using Coda. They were pretty much the only team using it. I knew that I didn't want to introduce another tool like Confluence or something else because that's too many to. So I knew I wanted to choose from the existing ones. And so I think when I first created a draft of this, I had like department pages, and I think it's like the department pages that really gets buy-in, because if you ask department leaders to like create their own page, then at least the department leaders are logged in, they've used it. And then second, I think similarly, I think onboarding or like releasing it to the company was really important. For us, we did like a really quick 2-minute demo during an all hands. And so, and I basically just did pretty much the same thing where I screen shared and I sent out the link to everyone at the same time. The reason why I wanted to send it out during an all hands instead of like on Slack is to ensure that people would actually open it. I feel like things often get buried in Slack. And so by sending it out during all hands, people were more likely to like click on it towards the end of all hands, so we don't get too distracted.
Yes,
and
the timing.
Yeah. And so, and then also now it's like part of our onboarding. And so new hires use this as like a great resource. And I think the next step here, I'm constantly trying to like drive adoption amongst like people who have been at Mode for more than the past year, for them to like make this a part of the workflow. And I think one kind of tip there is like pinning relevant Coda pages or like pages from our wiki into Slack or into like Slack channels, and just like slowly, hopefully over time, people go to like find the page that they go to a lot.
Totally. I'm also a big fan of putting links in my email signature, right? Like if I've got, here's the doc with all of our webinars and the recordings, put in your email signature so that, you can be like, per my email signature, there it is. I also want to call out one of the things I think is so interesting about your story is that the most valuable or most trafficked part of Central Station is that all hands recording, which is just a 3-column table, which if we think about, of all the amazing things you can do with Coda, well, sometimes it is just a 3-column table that's going to be the thing that's valuable. It's like finding that one thing. And sometimes it's the thing you would never expect. You've spent all this time making this amazing like automation with buttons and formulas, but people really just want like a good link, right? That they can search through. Awesome. John, how about you? I know you've helped a lot of organizations get wikis up and off the ground. Any best practices from you around rolling it out or getting buy-in from folks? Oh, you're on mute. That's okay. That's a wonderful silent film. I will interpret your angst. That's okay. Don't even worry about it. You just give us an interpretive dance, and then we'll make sure that we post your wiki best practices doc to the chat as well. Yes, it's all about balance. I think that's a really great point, John. Balancing how we put it out there, making sure that everybody has just enough, you're not overwhelming people, and also providing value from day one. Fantastic. Did I do okay on that interpretation? Fantastic. All right, we got another question here, which is what specific features made the rollout harder or easier? Curious if there's certain parts of your app like Doc that maybe made it more fun for folks. Van Ann, anything from you around kind of features that really were sticky during the rollout or helped make it kind of enjoyable?
Yeah, I would say with the enjoyable piece, we created like a crowdsourced Q&A page in our wiki where people can submit questions and then multiple people can answer and upvote on the answer that resonates the most. So yeah, we really care about crowdsourcing feedback, crowdsourcing information. So that was really big. Plus for users. In terms of, I guess, sticky points, probably around what types of policies and procedures to put in the wiki versus to actually have somewhere else. So I think, going through that and speaking with all the different departments, I'm like, what do you want to update here versus have somewhere else was the conversations we had to manage. So I think that probably took the most time.
Cool. And I just posted into chat, if you're interested in creating a similar crowdsourcing approach like Van Ann did, we do have a little in-doc template called the voting table. If you type /voting table in your Coda doc, it'll pull it up and then you can customize it and use that same flow that worked really well here. How about you, Angela? Any specific features that really made that rollout harder or easier for you? And anything that was particularly sticky since you're kind of launching an app in that way?
Yeah, well, first of all, I've actually never used a voting table. I'm excited to try that out.
Oh, totally.
To
Let me, it's let me actually share my screen because I'm a big nerd about, this is why I do what I do, so I'm a huge Coda nerd. But, so here we go. You should be able to see my screen. Yes? Cool. Fabulous. So this is actually what the voting table looks like. You have a button that adds, I want to add some advice, and then you can upvote or downvote. And if you want to add it, the fastest way to do so, I'm going to go ahead and just copy this doc so I can make it my own and play around and make some edits, is, just give me a moment. I can do some interpretive dance too, just like John, the balance dance for wikis. All of the hamsters in the background copying that doc furiously. All right, we're going to connect that later. But what I can do is I can type / and then voting table. There it is. I can just add it right there. And it now has all of that interaction put together for me, just like we saw in Van Ann's example of being able to upvote or downvote based on how you feel about something. And just add a topic. What kind of pizza do we allow? Very critical topic. And then we can upvote and move them around to kind of help you see. So that's that particular in-doc template that I really love. So something to check out and something I include in every meeting doc that I ever go to. Cool.
Didn't you use, by the way, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, amazing.
Voice from the void.
Oh man, if anyone had come on to our early morning, or at least early morning Pacific session, you would have known that I had the same issues. You all used a few other templates, right? For kind of like the problem definition and those.
Yep, exactly. Yep, and we also use the voting table for feedback on our feedback page. And actually, we use it a lot.
Once you start, you can't stop with the voting table. I will say that. And if folks are interested in learning more about the different little templates that you can plug into any doc, you just type / and start typing what you're interested in. Or if you go to Explore, you can take a look at all the templates there, and you'll find that you end up having kind of a couple favorites that you start to gravitate to. But honestly, the voting table is one that I use all the time for all kinds of things. Anytime you need to get information from a set of people and then see how important it is and help people prioritize, that's the way to do it. Excellent. Ooh, this is a cool question from Joe, which is, Van Ann and Angela, do you have any tips for interacting with Coda and the Coda support team when you get stuck? Also, what traits, and this is then a question for John that I'll ask in a minute, but any recommendations on kind of how to collaborate when you get stuck? Let's start with Van Ann. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, the Coda support team is fantastic. Like, they respond very quickly to any questions I have. I usually try to like figure it out like by browsing, the formulas list or looking at the whole bunch of information you have that I have access through your learning doc. And if I can't figure it out, then I'll ask. And they've been great at answering, whenever I'm having a troubleshooting issue. So yeah, fantastic experience.
Nice. I will say that they are some of my favorite people at Coda. And I use them for help all the time because they're just like brilliant and friendly and fun. Angela, how about you? Any tips for sort of when you get stuck, how to handle that?
One is I probably like look at the dot gallery to see how people have done it, and I totally do the same thing where I look at some cool like formula template thing, and then I copy it over, and then I take a look to see how they did it. But I found myself on the support page a couple times, and yeah, I forget what it is exactly, but I guess it's just a support page with like a bunch of like formulas. And like, because I think the formulas are kind of like Excel, but then kind of different. There's some things that are extra, some things that aren't included, but yeah, that's it.
The way that I equate it is like Excel is like Spanish and Coda is like Italian. Like they're very similar. They've got similar roots, but there's like some different verbs, right? And like different ways of talking, but very, very closely related. Excellent. Cool. One question that I have that I think is always interesting to think about is as you were building your wiki, were there any surprises or unexpected parts of that process? Angela, let's start with you. Anything that surprised you as you were building?
Let's see. I think one thing I realized was how important visuals are. And that's actually one thing that I think helps make it sticky is that, understanding that people process information differently. Which is why I've included like the Google Drawings embeds about like with the org charts. I think that just mixing up words with visuals and graphs just like makes things pop and much more memorable.
Yeah, and I think reminding ourselves that in our own heads it's all very clear, but then thinking about there's so many people there's a multitude of ways for people to experience or intake information, and so kind of the way that we think about a single source of truth is by letting all of those different kind of options be available for that accessibility piece. How about you, Van Ann? Any surprises as you were building out the wiki, things that were unexpected?
I would say probably when I was thinking through building this initially, I hadn't really thought about user interface or making it fun, as I then realized is like really important. And so, in the beginning, it definitely took a much more serious probably tone. And then later, I tried to incorporate a little bit of humor where appropriate, or like icons or visuals, just to make it much more engaging. So instead of like a chore to like go through documentation, it's actually a really engaging channel to learn, access, and contribute to knowledge. So I think that was something that surprised me and what I learned through the process.
I love that. And I love those verbs you use, like learn and contribute, right? And access, learn, access, contribute, like being able to make sure that the wiki meets all of those needs. And in order to contribute, you need to know how it's put together. I love the multi aspects of the focus there. We got another question from Nate. I love this one. Now that Coda Forms are a thing, do you have any visions or creative ideas for how forms could contribute to your wiki experience? Either of you have any perspectives on how that might come into play?
That's a very good question. I have that. So I subscribe to Coda's, newsletters, and I have that email starred for me to look into. So I'm really excited to explore it. I haven't yet, but it's waiting for me to take a look.
It is brand spanking new. Yeah. So the cool thing about forms here, I'm going to get on my nerd soapbox about it, is that it's just another view of your table. So in this case, the view is this form view, and you can have the form be in the doc itself. So you could have like a page that's like, enter in your company, information about who you are, and then it populates that table. but you can also publish them externally. So if you wanted to be like, hey, give us your feedback on something, you can have it be external and then it populates that table. It's directly connected. So some of the ways that we've used forms internally, Nate, that I can share with you is anytime we are planning an event, like a virtual event, it's how many people are going to be there? What's your mailing address? If we wanted to like mail something along, which events do you plan to attend? And being able to just enter in all the information very quickly, you know, from your mobile device or from your computer, either or. We've used that a lot. We've also started just using forms anytime we would have had like a button that then pops open the row to be able to see. We've just started adding in-doc forms as well. So those are some of the ways that we've used it. John, anything I'm missing as far as how we've been using forms? Because again, it is brand spanking new. Any other ways that you and your teams are using it that I'm not aware of?
I like to use it for customer feedback, so I don't have to open up the long list of all the great ideas in the world. It's just like, okay, I just got off the call with Angela, and that was like a really, really great idea. Let me like put it in the form, and then it goes off. And actually, there are a few folks who have joined. I'm trying to get it in the hands of my favorite makers as well. So it's like, you don't have to email me and then hope that I put it in there. You can just give it straight raw feedback and it'll go directly to our product managers, PMs at Coda, if you're listening, sorry. But I love that feedback. And actually, I'm thinking, Angela, like if you are to look at some of the tables in here, I'm thinking that this wheel could be really cool to have as a form. Like people can just keep it as a URL, like in Slack or something like that, and just like send, oh, I just found this really cool article, send it to the group. And I'm wondering if something like the all hands meeting could actually be a form that people just like put the link into the Zoom recording and then it automatically populates within your doc.
I was actually
thinking opportunity
of
to delegate.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Another thing was like so during our all hands every week we have like an ask mode everything or ask mode anything AMA, I'm currently using like a really old Google form for that that I didn't create. It was created long before me and stuff, and that would be like a great use case where it's like, you know, it's like an anonymous form of like some question that someone has, and then we have to like talk about that during the all hands.
Yeah, we have actually been thinking about that too, as well. So using using that as a way to gather questions and even upvoting questions for all hands.
For sure. And the cool thing, exactly. The cool thing about the forms is you could have the form populate a voting table, but just hide the columns that are the voting ones. So it's like, submit all your questions using this. And then here in the doc, you can upvote and downvote the ones that you're also interested in. So kind of a way to kind of bring in that pattern that folks are already used to at your organization, Van, and bringing that together. But I'm really excited to see where people take forms because it's a new feature. And what I find that is always the way with our Coda makers is we put a feature out there and then people just take it in all these places we would never anticipate and find all of these cool, innovative ways to work, which is great. Excellent. Oh, it looks like we have a question for you, John, which is what traits do you appreciate when helping users build docs?
That's a good question.
What makes people your favorite? How can you be like Angela and Van Ann?
Joe asked that double question, and he's like, I really, really want Joe or John to answer this. Like, I guess. That's a good question. Actually, if we just think about who's on today, like Angela and Van Ann, what I appreciate about you two is you have your own opinions and like uniqueness about like how documentation, knowledge, process, whatever you want to call it, should be. And it like comes out in each of your docs in different and like really fun ways. Like when I look at each of the docs, I can basically guess that one of you built it versus the other. And I just like love that Code allows you to do that. And then the second part is being able to listen, like being on BizOps, you have like the user needs and you're like figuring out what people like really want in a wiki and have that like tie to kind of who you're building it for. And then totally on the flip side, like Angela, being able to like get team lead buy-in and talking with like Derek and the C-suite and like really figuring out like what they want in this and then like getting them to come in and their voice to kind of shine. Is like you both allowed your team's voice to come into the Wiki in like very different ways, and it's kind of like unique to each of you in the way that you like make. So I just totally appreciate that. There's hundreds of other traits, but I just wanted to call out the two that are on today.
These are a few of my favorite things. One other question that I always ask in our sessions where we sit down with makers is about advice. So we've got a bunch of people on the call with us today who are either thinking about starting a knowledge hub or looking at their knowledge hub and going, what do I do to make it better? Or thinking about a knowledge hub. So what advice do you have to other makers who are getting ready to embark on this process? Angela, what advice would you give to folks who are thinking about starting on this journey or maybe picking up the journey again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it comes down to it. It's like a balancing act of what to include and what not to include, and then also like giving people enough like of a free reign to include what they need to like just share what's most important, but at the same time giving them like some structure so that it's like consistent across the whole company. I think that rolling out in phases as well is like super helpful. I had drafted this at first in like I think like a Google Doc or something, just like a table of contents, what I need and what I didn't need, and then I talked to different people about what they thought, and then I went and made it into a Coda doc.
Yeah. And can you talk a little bit about how you balance? Because I think it's interesting how you thought about what to include versus not include. Can you talk through your thought process there? Because I found it to be really interesting.
Yeah, I think it all comes with the same question of like, what do people need to know to like do their job every day? Like, and so it becomes very goal oriented. It's like, oh, well, it's really important for people to understand. People hear the mission, but that's like I think super important, even if it's like, especially I think in a remote world where we're not in the same office and we don't have like banners everywhere. We don't have like things all over our office that remind us of like our values, or remind us of why we're here. I think having this like central knowledge hub to remind you that is very important. And then same with like your annual goals, and just making it very goal oriented was what we ended up deciding on. That was like the theme.
Yeah, I love this idea of like, what do people need to do their jobs every day, right? This isn't necessarily where you're going to be putting all of the, huge amount of documentation. Like this place should be active. And I love that that's a choice that you made and then how you put it out there. Cool. Van Ann, what advice do you have to other makers getting ready to start building a knowledge hub, or maybe cleaning up an old knowledge hub, brushing the dust off?
Yeah, I think probably to John's point, coming from the biz ops team, like I think a lot about like what problem are we trying to solve, and how critical is the problem, what are the existing solutions, why are they not working, and doing that analytical work in the beginning really helps, I think, get clarity for everyone who could potentially be involved. I'm like, oh, okay, this is what we're trying to do, instead of trying to like throw something together and see what happens. So I think we really took that mindset, like, well, what can we do to bring like relevant information, knowledge to help people do their jobs better that's not being met elsewhere. With the new hires part, like, how do we get people up to speed a lot more effectively and efficiently so they can start doing their work, stuff like that, where we saw that there was a huge gap and needed to be solved. So
right.
I think, and then I think thinking about the architecture, kind of to your point, Maria, like we decided to use a hub and spoke approach, more specific playbook processes are in their own docs versus the wiki is more of like a landing page, if you will. So thinking about that architecture earlier on also helped.
Yeah, I love this idea of putting in some analytical work ahead of time, right? If you're going to be making a doc that's going to be used by everyone in the company, like really giving some thoughtful exercise to like, well, what do we really need? And why is what we have not working? So we don't just kind of take all of our, I'm thinking of you, John, in the process of moving, like, are we just going to bring all of the stuff that we don't like that's cluttering our current place to our new place? Or are we going to like take this opportunity to go, what do we really need? Why can't we put our groceries away? Maybe that's just me talking. I don't know. Like, what is getting in the way from us? I think that's really great. If you think about these wikis, wikis are by their very nature constantly changing, right? They're dynamic, they're alive, they shift and respond. So if you're thinking about your wikis, is there anything that you would want to add to this? Like anything on your roadmap, if you will, about what might be an interesting addition? Do either of you any perspectives on that? Angela, anything in your mind?
Yeah, if you're asking for a wish list, I recently came
Go
across.
for it. Let's do it.
I think it'd be awesome to be able to embed videos. And just like right now, we use Dropbox, and so
Okay.
or like embed videos directly on a page so that we don't have to like link out to watch something. We can embed photos, I think. Photos for sure we can embed.
So yeah. The cool thing about with videos is you can embed them. So like if you have something on YouTube, you can go ahead and just embed it and have it show up right away. You can embed videos from other locations. You just need to make sure that their permissions are set to open, because in this case, Coda is acting like a person clicking on that link. But I think you're right. This idea of kind of permission videos, we do have some work that we can do there for sure.
Yeah, you can't add YouTube videos. That is true. I forgot about that. But yeah,
that's all right.
I'd love to get videos, and also I think like a detailed view of engagement would be really useful for me. I think maybe just for me though, because I just want to see like which pages actually people have seen. I think I kind of have to like catch people in the moment to know that what page they're on. Just have it open all day and see where people are. But I'd love to see just like detailed views of engagement, and like maybe it'd be surprising to see like what pages do get a lot of views.
I love both of those ideas. And one thing I know is that I think some of our product managers are actually on the call. So John and I will do our darndest to be like, hey. One thing I will say is we've got a feature that's going to be coming up that I think can give you some really interesting qualitative ideas of like where people are reacting and responding. In the short term, this isn't analytics, but I think it's kind of interesting when we think about wikis and understanding like, do people find this helpful or not? You could have a button at the bottom of a page that's like helpful or not helpful, and have it have a badge count of how many times it's been hit. But we've got some really interesting things coming in short term. So definitely like keep an eye out on some newsletters that will be coming your way. But I love this idea of, how can we get that analytical, quantitative response to how our docs are being used. Cool. How about you, Van Ann? Anything you want to be adding to your wiki, or things on your roadmap, or things that you think would just be really cool if it was possible?
Yeah, I would say we've gotten a lot of interest in teams who want to use Coda for their own use cases, including like, team-specific wikis. So I'm trying to think through, well, how could that work, and how would the broader one and the team-specific one like relate to one another? So
totally.
That's on my list to incorporate. And then people love the feature around giving feedback and like the voting. So like there's a lot of like of that coming my way, where people are like, oh yeah, this is a great way to gather, on learnings across the organization. How do we do that? And through this approach. So those are some things on my horizon. In terms of like, I guess, feature requests, I think definitely have gotten a lot of interest in some automatic way to see recent activity in the wiki, like most content, like maybe the 10 latest content that was added, removed, or modified. I think there's a way where you can push a button and maybe an update can go to Slack, but if there's a way to kind of more passively see what's going on. It's something I've heard a lot.
One thing that reminds me of is actually this morning's session. Anna from Webflow has a really interesting thing that she's done for her support team wiki, which is like her full wiki has like 600 pages. It's got everything. It's documentation, processes. It's super cool. But one of the things that she's done that I think is brilliant is she has one email that she's created to be kind of like the admin of it. And that people, when they have feedback, everything goes to that person. And then every week, what she'll do is she'll take a look at all the feedback or the things that need updates, and she'll make the changes, and she adds it to a table on the front page that is a detail view of like every update that was made. And then a control that filters by date. So you can see like, oh, this month, what's everything that's been updated in the wiki, which for a support team ends up being really important to understanding, have we changed how our SSL works or whatever it might be. But that was something she showed us in the webinar this morning. And John, maybe if you want to snag the link to Anna's doc, put it in chat so folks can steal it. But I thought that was a really interesting way of dealing with updates and letting people know, here's everything that's happened that's of note, right? Which is kind of neat. But I do like this idea of like a doc digest almost. What is all the stuff that's gone on here? Which I think is interesting. Things like Confluence have that for sure. One thing I'd love to know is, what is your favorite Coda feature? It can be something that you use in the wiki or not. Angela, what's your favorite Coda feature?
Definitely embeds, and obviously the mode one, but just embeds in general. I feel like even if I like have these like this wish list of things that I want, a part of me like wonders if like, oh, I'm sure there's actually some workaround or some sort of like plugin or embed for that. So I love embeds, and maybe tables, which is also super simple, but just being able to like have one like general table and then being able to link it over across several pages. And then when someone edits something on one page, it like keeps all of it updated. And so it's like, I don't know, you don't have to like copy and paste the same thing over and over.
Yes.
I would say those two things.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
If I never have to copy paste again in my life, it will be perfect. Because I'm with you. It's tables and views are like one of the most basic, in quotes, Coda features, but it is one of my favorites because I used to have to update like 10 spreadsheets, and it was hours of my life. And it was just like, there has to be a better way. But Coda didn't exist.
I'm going to miss
one. So exactly, right. And then someone's going to be working off of bad data, right?
Totally.
How about you, Vanna? What's your favorite Coda feature?
Yeah, I would have two as well. So my first one
you can have two.
is our tables and like the flexibility of how you can see the data in the tables, whether you want to see it in a normal master table or a pivot table, or depending on the data, a Gantt chart, a calendar, detail view. Like I love that flexibility to do that very easily. And the cross-dock of tables. So tables and all the features that come with it. And then secondly, I've more recently been exploring the automations, which I think is great to just, I don't have to keep, for example, checking the feedback table in the wiki if people added feedback. Like any time a row is added, I will get notified. It's also been really helpful for, projects where, when someone marks something done, then it notifies you and one less thing for you to do. So I like that, like productivity side of things, automation side of things.
Yeah. I like to think that with Coda Automations, it's like everybody can get an executive admin, right? To be like, oh, here's all the things that you need to know. Like these are all the things that have changed. And it's just nice to kind of think about the things that help what's important when. And that's one of my favorite ways to use it. Also, I love using it to send an email, right? So like every week, here's what we're doing for our project, like email out the table of what's going on. Very cool. Another question that I always... Oh,
do you have a favorite in the context of wikis for features?
Yes, my favorite in the context of wikis is buttons. Tables and views will always have my heart, like first love, right? But there's something about a button that I think just adds this level of fun. Like, first of all, it's a pop of color, which you can tell from my sweater. I probably appreciate that, right? And I think color inside of a doc just kind of makes it come alive. And it's also something that people can do, right? You click on it and then something happens. So it automatically creates this interaction where you feel part of it. So I love including buttons. The other thing, because I also have two, is when it comes to wikis, is cover photos and the table of contents. Because a cover photo, again, just like a button, it's that color. It's something that's visual. It's interesting. And it sets the tone. And I love how in Van An, in your wiki, you've actually got like company branded cover photos that make it feel like yours, right? And then table of contents, anytime you're dealing with lots of information, it allows people to just jump to exactly where they want to go. So because if it takes too long to find something, we all know that people are just going to hop on Slack and email and be like, hey, where do I find that thing again? We want to make sure that it's really usable. So I love the table of contents for that as well. Yeah.
I love that it's connected
what
to
I
like
always
Unsplash too. Oh, sorry.
Yes. No, never apologize. Not at all. Go for it.
Oh, I on the cover photo thing, I like that it's like I guess you can use Unsplash. And so I feel like usually I'm creating a page and I'm like, I just need something like, I don't have time to look for a photo, so I just need something bright.
Yes, totally. And I'm not a designer either. And I'm like, I'm gonna like put something in Microsoft Paint and it'll be really ugly. But I love that because Unsplash is connected, I can look like I'm like a really hip designer with an eye for color, right? But I just be like, oh, productivity, what comes up? And then you get it there. It's a wonderful little adjustment. I'm totally with you on that, Angela. The last question that I always ask people when we sit down and chat about docs is, what was the biggest learning that you had in creating your doc? Van Ann, what was the biggest learning that you had in building your wiki?
Biggest learning? That's a good question. I would say, I think like just the opportunities of how we can make knowledge management fun and better. I think in the past, like it was such a struggle how to tackle it. And I think like, yeah, and I think that this really opened my eyes to like, wow, there's actually a lot of opportunity and this can be really fun and it can be, it doesn't have to be that like nut that never gets cracked. And so I think that really, I think through building the wiki, it was able to like help me adjust my perspective and my mindset. So,
ooh, I love that.
That was really useful.
Nice. Right on. How about you, Angela? What's your biggest learning in building out the central station?
I think that just like actually how useful it is. Having a wiki was something that's been a project that several people have like, maybe like, oh, maybe so-and-so should work on. But we're a startup and there's so many things to do. So it wasn't until like last year that I guess like we finally had the time and resources for someone to take it on. I guess me, but just and like I just don't know how we ever like didn't have one. I would say it's like super important to like invest in.
Yeah, and oftentimes it's like we realize we need a wiki like much later than when we should have had it, right? Like, oh, if only we would have had something before, we wouldn't be in that mess. I love that. Oh, we have one more question here. Love it. We've got 2 minutes, so we can handle this, Nate. I love this, which is when you're getting content in front of internal leaders. So when you were, saying, hey, executive stakeholders, here's what we're making. Did you publish the doc or did you have it just as a regular Coda doc that people log into? How about you, Van Ann? Was it published or logged in?
I don't think it was published for everyone just yet. Okay. I do think going forward with these other team wikis, I kind of give them the option. So some teams are like, just make it public. It'll just be like work in progress, but they can at least see what we're doing. So cool. That's kind of an option I've been seeing these going forward.
Nice. And Angela, how about you?
Yeah, ours was not published either, but one thing, and since then actually we've like created different pages and our just wiki like growing. But one thing I like to do is like make it hidden. And so that way it's like the people who are working on it know that like it exists and they can see it and it's like technically available to everyone, but the people who are just like browsing and not looking for it don't see it. And that's kind of like a halfway between like work in progress and being public.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Excellent. Well, as we come into our final moments here together, I just want to thank you both for taking time out of your very busy days to sit down, chat with us, share your insights, share your brilliance, share your thoughts, because honestly, this is where the magic happens, right? By hearing someone who solved a problem, it starts to percolate in all of us. And it's just been, I could say for myself, just a pure joy being able to spend some time with both of you. I do want to make sure if there's anything that you would like to plug or where people can learn more about your organization, that I give you just a moment to do so. Van Ed, anything that you want to promote from your side of the house and where people can learn more about you and your organization?
Yeah, so we at Bright Insight, we're startup as well, growing really quickly. So feel free to check our LinkedIn page, website, etc. And I'm also really open to having a conversation about the doc that now is in the template gallery and trade ideas, etc. So open to be being part of this community and engaging a lot further.
Yeah, right. I mean, we're better together. I fully believe that. Awesome. Angela, how about you? Anything you want to plug where people can learn more about you or your organization?
Yeah, pretty simple, mode.com. And if you take a look at the wiki under progress, like you can see like the mode embeds and like how we use our core concepts right now. It's like a suite of reports that I think a lot of companies, especially like smaller companies, maybe like I think on this chat would be very beneficial for. So yeah, also happy to connect after.
Well, cool. And I can say from experience, again, as Mode customers, we love it. And it's a game changer. If you want to make data-driven decisions, it's huge and amazing for us. Excellent. Well, thank you both so much for today. It's been a true pleasure. Thank you everyone for joining us. It's always an exciting day when I get to sit around and nerd out about Coda with folks. So have a wonderful rest of the week. Stay tuned for our 2021 webinar schedule. It's going to be hitting the world here very shortly. Really excited about that. And let us know what kind of wikis you're building. We are curious. We want to know. We want to get better together. So share, toot your horn. We'll toot your horn with you. And it's been a really great time spending it with all of you. And thank you, John, for being my partner in crime today. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks, Maria. You're the best.
All right, everybody. Have a lovely evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are in this wonderful world of ours. And we'll see you next time.